these are only a few results. We also set up, based on the research, a typology of citizens and of politicians, because, I mean, not everybody in your population is really involved in politics or has an interest in politics. And there we see that we have about 90% of the population which can be called like a cyber citizen. These are innovators and early adopters of tools that already exist. These are people which go to municipal websites and check out which decisions are being made or what the agenda is. These are the people that consult newspaper websites about politics and party websites about politics. They have a high interest in politics. They are more male than female. They are plus 40 years old, so I'm too young for that. And they are ICT minded. Which is a proportion of about 20%. These are your believers. These are the people, when you launch a project, who jump in, which is also a smaller part of the population. Then we've got about 24% of the population, and who say, with the silent majority, who are the pragmatic citizens. These are the guys, more female, more young, higher educated, socially active, and pragmatic ICT adopters. These are part of the population who use ICT, but only if the process of doing so is very well organized. So they will not put effort into it, but giving really well-developed e-participation or the e-democratic processes, they will get involved, they will participate. And then we had about 39% of the population, which are the passive citizens. They are uninterested laggards. They have less social active lives, so not only in the e-world, but also in the non-online world. They are socially less active, no higher education, and no interest in ICTs. And this is a rather big group which will be very hard to reach them on an e-democratic way. And this is one of the big challenges of e-democratic processes. We also did this typology within the politicians. A few politicians asked them afterwards, which one was I? We've got about 36% of the politicians we called cyber politicians. They were ICT-minded and in favor of citizen participation, not only on traditional levels but also on ICT levels. 17% of them were to be called pragmatic politicians. These are the guys who will get involved the same way if everything is done for them. And we had about 74% of the politicians who were really, really skeptical. And who are a traditional follower of what is called the representative democracy. If you study democracy, there are a few types of democracy. Belgium is an example of a representative democracy, and they are in favor of the traditional ways it has been done. And as you know, in Belgium we don't have a problem with voters because you are obliged to vote. So a few of the problems we have in the political process are different from in many other European countries. And they say, we were elected to Parliament or to the Council, so we have the right to do our thing the next 6 years. And within 6 years, people will have the right to say whether we've done it right or wrong. And they are in favor of this traditional way of organizing democracy. This is where the politicians get involved with the midfield. And the midfield in Belgium is being seen as the representatives of the citizens. So they are not really in favor of direct involvement of citizens. There were many conclusions, but I will point out only four for today. One is there is room for more e-democracy initiatives. There is a large enough part of politicians and citizens who are in favor. The second one is, and this was also in the participatory, the first phase, the more qualitative research we did, is that there is a need for a well-developed framework. E-democracy right now is being seen as having a block. Okay, but what's the direct impact on our political process? Is being seen as having a form online where many negative examples or negative experiences exist. And there is no clear idea about what is eDemocracy, what is an e-participatory trajectory, what do we have to do, what is a strategy that we will have to follow. They see like little spots. Okay, there is something e-petition. You can do an e-survey. You can have a community site. But what's the broader picture? Third conclusion based on that is that there is need for a kind of e-democracy toolkit, not only with little bits of pieces of technology, but with methods. How do we set up an e-democratic process? And then there is a huge need for positive case studies, for examples. Most of these politicians only had rumors about e-democracy and no real experiences with e-democratic processes. Based on this study, the Flemish Parliament took a few points of view. One is to encourage the new president of the Flemish Parliament took the advices of this report seriously and says that in her period that she is the president of the Flemish Parliament, that she wants to build bridges to encourage citizens to participate with a focus on information, reaching all people and multi-channel approaches. So this is only the very first phase of this e-democratic process. Online, put latest information and consultable on websites, and we saw examples of that, and you see examples of that coming up everywhere in Europe, where you've got content management system, document management systems, where you got auditive and video information about the democratic process. Offline, there are permanent information centers set, plenary meetings live on television sets. There is a project called Power of Your Voice for students to get them involved about the working of the Flemish Parliament. But this is also, in our point of view, more a passive level, spreading the word and information. An interesting proposal is working on improvement of the quality of legislation. Now, legislation, traditionally, the Parliament organizes public hearings with, most of the time, specialists. They order reports of researchers concerning social problems, and based on this information, they try to develop policy. Now there is a thinking that how can we involve individual citizens more directly on the political thinking. And for instance, this weekend I told you there is a project in the Flemish Parliament where 300 or 400 citizens will think about the future of the car in Belgium, about mobility, and will try to make policy proposals about that. And there's obligation of the Flemish Parliament to at least discuss all these policies which are being developed there. And then a third action of the President is that she wants to do a benchmarking about the functioning of European parliaments on quality of legislation. And the action point taken there for the Flemish Parliament is to examine to what extent they can be more transparent, involve the Parliament, the midfield and citizens. And they are actually right now seeing what all the parliaments in Europe are doing and to see how they can be in the front group and not as they are right now, lower middle group. The President of the French Parliament at this point of time is also the President of CARLE, the Conference of European Regional Legislative Assemblies, and one of her aims there is to put e-democracy more on the agenda of all the parliaments in Europe.